Look the way he stares at you. It's like he stares right into your soul. Hi everyone, Starethany Soltano here, the internet's creepiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the new Bones mixtape, PaidProgramming2. Eerie and prolific California rapper Bones is back with a new mixtape, his second this year, and one of his longest thus far, standing at over 70 minutes long, which on the face of it isn't necessarily a bad thing. For a while now, I've been enjoying Bones' sound, his lyrics, his production, his delivery, his rap style, but I've been wanting him to drop something a little more substantive than the usually short projects he drops one after another. For example, his last mixtape, Useless. This thing featured some of his heaviest beats and most blood-curdling screams yet on any project. Generally, I liked it. There's something that you should know about Bones' music if you don't already. His sound is incredibly dark by hip-hop standards. He pulls a lot of influence from artists like Bone Thugs-n-Harmony and 3 6 Mafia, but he travels so much further down that tortured, horrifying, almost gothic rabbit hole, farther than I think any of his contemporaries do, at least. For example, his verse on BIODEGRADABLE is one of the grimiest and grimmest I've ever heard him drop on a project, with references to cuts on his hands from aluminum cans and rust in his lungs from the dump he was in. I actually think there are quite a few lyrical highlights on this thing. A lot of the time, Bones is spitting the edgiest shit ever, or singing from his tear-stained diary on cuts like, "My biggest enemy's always been myself." The palpable angst. And there are moments on here where he's throwing jabs at the plethora of copycats out there who have sprung up since his cult following came into fruition and they figured out the Bones formula. Sort of like on the song Black Mold, where the opening line to this track is literally, "Your shit is terrible, shut the fuck up!" which is backed up with some amazing production from Fleece, with of course those very spacey, dark, trap-flavored pieces of percussion, which are accented with these weird wailing tones throughout much of the track. Again, there are a lot of great ideas on these tracks, some good lyrics, good production, but sadly the over an hour of material that is featured on this project is spread out among Bones' usual 1 to 2 minute song formula. Not too much unlike every other Bones project, and not too much unlike the original Paid Programming mixtape, which dropped in 2013, which was also pretty long too. And while Bones' rapping and production has certainly improved a great deal since the original Paid Programming tape, he's just really not pushing himself outside of his comfort zone with these song lengths. Even though there are highlights on this thing, a great deal of them drown one another out because they're all given the same level of impact and the same amount of emphasis. These scant song lengths reduce the memorability of even the best ideas on this thing. Not to mention that these songs stand shoulder to shoulder with other tracks that are so short and so unambitious, I have no idea how they made it onto the project. And I guess it's part of the concept of the Paid Programming series for Bones to just throw in everything and the kitchen sink, which is probably how kind of random moments like Art Vandelay happened, which has a kind of funny Seinfeld reference at the beginning of the track, and then right afterwards we kind of have Bones doing this somewhat lifeless singing over this very chill, wavy, future funk beat. And on the song Tears of an Angel, it's almost like we're getting kind of a weird R&B cut. I can't help but imagine Bones on this song singing with like a pair of Oakleys and like a white button-down shirt, which is open of course, and like wind is blowing against him and he's in front of a green screen, which is putting him on an ocean horizon. And he's just singing his heart out. It sounds like something off of, I don't know, a public access music talent show. But honestly, the low points on this record, the spots that are awful or that I think are so bad they're funny, they're few and far between. But still, the overall lack of ambition on this project and just how disjointed and attention deficit it seems, leaves a lot of quality tracks, potentially quality tracks, hanging on sudden fade-outs and abrupt endings around that 1 to 2 minute mark. I haven't reviewed, but I've at least listened to around 10 of this guy's projects since I found out about him, and he does this on every single project, and you'd think that with each one, the appeal of what he's doing with these short songs would grow on me, but it just hasn't, because I don't even really think there's any creative merit behind structuring songs songs in the way that Bones does. It's not even like the songs are just short. It's kind of like Bones continually releases half a song over and over and over, especially on a project that is an hour long. It kind of becomes wash, rinse, repeat. This formula works on some of the most aggressive tracks here, which make a strong impression because of their volume and their anger. Or maybe on a moment where Bones' verse is so dark and so great and so well written that it stands on its own. Now, I do enjoy the handful of cuts that actually go over the 3-minute mark on this thing, like on the track Words Cannot Encapsulate, which the very depressing mood of this track I think is enhanced by its normal song length. But these longer tracks are just kind of few and far between. You know, PaidProgramming2, it's just, again, the same kind of issues that I've had with Bones' past projects, but just kind of exacerbated by the fact that I'm listening to over an hour of material and 25 songs. Now, despite my slight boredom with this project, I stuck around for the final moments. The song Final Level Cutscene is a weird mix of cringe coming from the faux video game intro, but I was also deeply moved by Bones' verse where he was talking about how people just react so callously and with fake concern to horrible things that go on in the world on social media. But then I was also mortified by some of the lackluster lyrics on the verse too. And then the whole project ends with this 20-minute long skit titled Sesh Radio Volume 3, which is of course following up the 2 previous Sesh Radios, one of which turns up on the original Paid Programming. And it's an odd piece of sound art that is produced to sound like a real radio station, a real radio program. And it's actually kind of funny, absurd, witty. The breaks in between shows are really funny. The weather segments are really funny. There are malfunctions during the radio program. There are songs playing in between pieces. Of course, Bones is performing on these songs, but he's not performing like he would normally put together a song himself. He's sounding like another artist entirely. There's one track in this little skit where he sounds like he's doing kind of a Grandmaster Flash thing. Bones might have this tortured, dark exterior on a lot of his songs, but he actually reveals himself to have a really sharp sense of humor. Not only that, but he shows how far his creativity goes when the sky is the limit. Say what you will about some of the writing and some of the dialogue in this skit, but the world that Bones creates on this little skit here is pretty vivid between the hosts and the different shows and the programming and the sound effects and the music beds behind the hosts and the people who call in. Some of the commercials on this thing, there's a hilarious ad for Iron Gains Gym and another like promo for fucking truck nuts. In the end, I'm slightly torn on PaidProgramming2. Part of me feels like some of Bones' most wildly creative and cool ideas turn up on this project. Then another part of me feels like the same issues I've had with his past efforts show up here in spades. And then I'm also kind of impressed with the weird radio programming concept that he has going on with this mixtape, especially with the skit at the end, and just the variety of songs and musical styles and emotions that turn up throughout this thing too. I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this mixtape a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like. If you like, please subscribe. Please don't cry if you are pissed off at my thoughts on this goddamn Bones mixtape. I'm sorry. Bones, PaidProgramming2, forever.